Welcome to the Unlock Women Money series with Kanya Sosibo
and Doric Sitole.
And we're talking money.
Oh, we're back.
We're back, my lady. We're back with another amazing.
Oh, let me tell you, this woman, this girl, this lady, this human, this soul, right? Because sometimes, time and space make you feel like you'll never see people again, or it was a passing phase. So this moment right here is everything. We've had our moments just before we got onto set, but this moment is absolutely amazing. And I'm so happy to be welcoming Refiloe Nyoni, who is, guys, we just don't have the time for me to tell you about her and the journey that I've walked with her. She is, and I'm going to start with this because I think it's so close to your heart. You carry it with so much pride and love. Who is a mother to a gorgeous, beautiful baby girl. We were just saying earlier on that, they're twins. They're a day apart. So basically she gave birth to herself, right? Because the world needed two of you, clearly. And she's also an entrepreneur. She is a wellness facilitator. She is a yoga instructor. She is just a woman extraordinaire. And she's somebody that's very dear to me. And, there's parts of yourself that you think you forget, but those are the things that were pivotal into building or changing your life for the better. Yeah. And I can proudly say that you were definitely part of that journey, Refiloe. You really, really were. And with that, this is just a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for giving us the time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It has been the warmest welcome, warm in terms of reception, but also warm in terms of the conversations that we're having today. What a time to be alive, where as women, we can be at the forefront of talking money.
Sure,
Did we ever think that such a thing could happen?
Right. And it's very necessary. It's a very necessary conversation. And I know that, with Doric and myself, because we have corridor talks, any opportunity, it's never just hi. It's always something. And we find, because especially when you work within a space of purpose, right? You always find that the conversation that you're going to have will always be, how can I do more? And every time it seems that when you're talking about doing more, you cannot do more without the resources. And one of those very big resources is, money. But it's not the only resource. And I think that's why, when Doric said, I think we need to have a conversation with Refiloe, because it's not just about, because if you give somebody money, the physical money, and they also don't have all the other resources that are necessary, that money might not be able to fulfill its purpose, right? Or multiply as it should.
Yeah.
And I think that's what brings us to this moment, right? Because Doric, you are very big on this, mindfulness, awareness, and just all things energy, and rightfully so.
Yeah. I'm always in awe when I meet another coach, because we love to celebrate one another, understanding that at our core, we are in the business of serving people and getting people to discover who they are, their authentic identities. So I'm literally like a fan already. You can classify me as a groupie. I'll follow you around, hold your hand back for you, and do all those things. But just having listened to some of the conversations you've had, you are literally a household name to African bankers. And they've heard you talk about personal mastery. You've done some work with African bankers, but we were so excited when you said yes to this cause, because we get to take what you do and then we say, okay, so how do we take personal mastery and fit it into the discussion around empowering women financially? How do I speak about abundance if I'm aligned to personal mastery? So maybe just to kick off our conversation, let's start there. What is personal? I know you had this quote and I was looking at it, I was like, this is where we're starting. This is the foundation. And you had a quote by Anis Nin, and it says, we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are.
Yeah.
Ooh. We don't see it as it is. We see it as it is, as we are. So for me, I'm thinking, so if I don't see myself as worthy or deserving, does that have an impact on what I get from the world?
Yeah.
Too. So for someone who's not familiar with personal mastery, how would you define that?
So I think just contextually, in terms of the conversation that we're having today, the definition can be manyfold,
Yeah.
Kanye said that, we talk about doing more and more and how important it is, but sometimes the crucial things are doing less frustration, less insecurity, less seeing the things that we perceive to be problem areas in our lives as the glass being half full instead of a glass that really has something in it. In terms of the definition of personal mastery, I think in some ways it's self-explanatory. It talks about self, personal, right? And mastery talks about cultivating the better resources so that we're able to navigate this wonderful thing that we called life, this journey.
Yeah.
So in terms of how I break that down a little bit more, it's about firstly self-awareness, self-management, self-knowledge. And why mindfulness maybe then starts to play a role in all of this is because it really gives us the tools to be able to gain access to those capacities. That quote that you mentioned, I think is such a powerful one.
I know it is. I looked at it and I was like, whoa. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, for example, we could all be looking at the same thing, but what we see is not necessarily a reflection of what that thing is. However, what lens we are looking through it. I think why this is important, especially in terms of the conversation around money, is that we all come from such different backgrounds. We come from such different homes, contexts. We've been domesticated in different ways. So the perception that we have is not necessarily a general worldview, but rather what we've been taught to see. And sometimes we've been taught to see out of lens of fear. And where personal mastery comes in is refining our mind's eye. It's wearing spectacles that help you to see things differently, a lot less blurry, and give you more direction in terms of the path that you want to walk.
Yeah. So I had this very interesting conversation this week with someone, and we were talking about kids. So my daughter's 7 years old, and this person said to me, I was watching this documentary and they were talking about how the power of the language we use with our children determines how they're going to view life, how they're going to view the world, and how they're going to view money. So the usual, I'm broke. The child comes, Mommy, I want this. And I don't have money. I'm broke. So I want us to touch on the power of language, because when you talk about, we all have self-sabotage types of beliefs. At some point, you just don't believe you can do anything with your life. Those voices are in everybody's head. It's just how we manage the voice. In this instance, in terms of language, when it comes to money, how do you think a woman could actually do better in terms of what they say about money and how that has an impact on what they get in return, and the abundance, obviously, which is what we're talking about today, how that can have an impact on the magnet itself?
So I love that we've brought children in this conversation, right? I mean, we talk about leaving a better world for our children, but very few of us are concerned with leaving better children for the world, So just in terms of the legacy that we have as parents, as custodians of these beings that we brought into the world, they really watch us. So it's not about what we tell them, but instead it's about how we live, So, I mean, just small conversations I was having earlier, saying that my daughter came to me the other day, and she said to me, Mom, we need to get this, but we'll wait till you get paid. And I was a bit taken aback about that, because I don't know where she got that, because that's definitely not the conversation that we have in our home, And I think recognizing that the circle of influence is not just us, which means the responsibility is so much greater, And again, that's where the mastery comes in. When you hear your little one having that conversation, having the courage, maybe not to fight or anything, but to unpack the conversation and say, hey, where did that come from? Where did you learn that there's a payday?
There's a payday. You have to wait. You also have to wait for the payday.
Though. I mean, for me, I have to say that, for young kids, that patience, to say, let's wait for payday.
Versus the I want it now. But already that's a red flag, is it not?
Yes.
Just hearing certain phrases being used by your child should immediately alert you to the fact that maybe I need to change the narrative here. Because you were touching on the aspect of mindfulness. So Talking about, yes.
So just in terms of that, it's not even me changing the conversation with her, but rather it goes back to personal mastery, me changing the conversations I have with myself as well. That might give access to that, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's where maybe the mindfulness comes in, where self-awareness, even that moment with your child is a moment of self-awareness,
Ooh, it's like a mirror. You're looking at yourself and you're going,
and
what
so
could I
perhaps
have
you didn't
said?
necessarily teach her that, but how do I embody that, in my own life? Do I also think about a payday? Do I also think about there are special moments for special things? And it's such a crucial conversation, especially if we contextualize it in the sense of women, many women, it's a different time, are leaders of households. And how we engage with money. You spoke about vocabulary. Vocabulary is so important. I always think, like, even when it comes to things like emotional intelligence, it's great big words. But what about emotional vocabulary? Do we have that? How do we have intelligence without definitions, without descriptions, without words that we can name and tame our emotions, etc.? And I think the same goes for financial literacy. What vocabulary are we using? Are we intentional about it? Do we perceive it from a place of scarcity, or do we see it as more abundance? And again, there's no right or wrong. I think it's so important that we learn not to judge ourselves for our mindsets, because again, we're setting ourselves back. Recognizing how you see something, acknowledging it, is the first step to making a change. And I think for some of us, we're so afraid of the recognition because it means that we're seeing things that we don't necessarily want to see, and we feel wrong. Financial literacy is a great word. We have a lot of buzzwords. But how do we have financial literacy without vocabulary that is accessible on a daily basis?
Is it necessarily a bad thing that she did say that we must wait till payday? And I ask it from the perspective of that sometimes what then does put people into a tailspin, right, in a negative direction, or drives the fear or feeds the fear, is the lack of the patience to say that I've noted that I want this thing, or I want this amount of money, or whatever it is, but there is process and there is time. And with time, you can never do anything but let time be time. So I just wanted to take it from there. Is it necessarily a red flag? But I mean, your response was, we're not going into war, but it's to engage where you get that from and how they are understanding it. So that would be my question. Would that be a red flag necessarily?
I don't think it's necessarily red flag. We talk about not having problems, but rather opportunities. And I think that things that we see as red flags are really opportunities, and many learning opportunities. What's that quote by Winston Churchill when he says, never waste a good crisis? We can always take something out of it.
There's lessons to be learned.
You don't necessarily want to see or hear and that kind of thing. So I don't think it's a red flag. And I think that, from the perspective of conversations, that's how we grow as people, and having the time to be able to pause and have a conversation with her to unpack what it means, is different. And I think it's also different maybe coming culturally from our background, where children weren't necessarily heard. We were just seen. So, acknowledging the gratitude of the space that we find ourselves in, where we can have those conversations, where a child can say something like that, where my response as a parent is not, like shouting or anything like that. It's an important acknowledgement. I think even in terms of our mindset, there's a lot to be grateful for. Yes, we have money situations. Yes, we have challenges, but there are also things that are going well. And I think poverty is not just about the lack of money, but it's the lack of being grateful for what is available.
Sure. There's something that you said, and I heard it, and Doric, you touched on this when we started the conversation about language. And I noted that as you speak, and I guess you've sort of mastered it. I'm sure you learn every day that you did not say we have money problems, we have money situations, because it's a situation. It's temporary. It's going to the next thing is going to come. So that was just me, being aware of and hearing, the process of the language. Yeah.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
It's a pleasure.
Well, she's a master at it. So we're talking about personal mastery. she is a master at it.
Yeah.
So I know there's people who are listening, and the takeaway always is not for us just to talk and highlight terms and definitions. I want people to feel like I got some tools out of this conversation. I know what to do first with my thoughts. I know what to do with my vocab.
Yeah.
How would you say someone steps into a place of going into an abundance mentality? What does that look like?
Yeah.
If you were to like kind of list some things for me to be able to say, hey guys, my mentality is an abundance mentality, not a scarcity one. Let's start with the abundance mentality, because I know we've touched on scarcity and some of the things that come with that. Maybe just to summarize, you could say, just going back to scarcity, when you've got a scarcity mentality, you've got 1, 2, 3. But with abundance, how would you say the abundance mentality looks like? What are some of the things that someone could be doing to actually be in that space? What am I surrounded by? Is it energy? What is it for someone who doesn't get it? Because we talk about mentality all the time. What's the abundance mentality?
So I think a few things. I think sometimes where we set ourselves up for failure as human beings is we want to take big leaps. It's important to know, when you're changing anything, whether it be a mindset, whether it be a nutritional plan, whether it be learning something new in a job, etc., that things have to happen incrementally and in installments. And I think part of where we trip ourselves up is that we expect that, okay, today I'm going to start this thing and then tomorrow it's going to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
I'm a big lover of quotes. I'm sure you guys can hear already, but
Please,
there's a Chinese
some
proverb
more.
that says that the journey is the reward, So when it comes to moving from a place of scarcity and abundance, firstly is a recognition that neither are wrong. It's a reality, and one could not exist without the other. So the acknowledgement that both are okay is fine, So that self-acceptance and awareness is crucial. I think secondly, defining what abundance means for you, I think we share words, but we don't necessarily share meanings. And this is part of the conversation that we're going to have about success, even financial success. What does that mean to you? Does it mean R1 billion in the bank? Or does it mean doing a little bit better than you did before? Does it mean being able to afford something that you weren't necessarily able to afford before? What does it mean for you and to you? So for me, I liken it to unpack your baggage. What are your money situations? How did you get there? Why do you feel the way you do about whatever money situation that you find yourself in? What are some of the contributing factors? I remember a friend saying to me, hey, I had this group of friends and it was such a challenge being around them because afterwards, we go out, we impress, we are,
We're all over
popping
the place,
all the,
the
big
facade, the
champers
facade.
brands and,
Yeah.
so living up to certain standards that aren't necessarily real or don't necessarily do anything for us is another important thing. So what are some of the contributing factors to some of the money situations that you are finding yourself in? Are there certain people when you're around them, you want to spend more or you want to spend a little bit, but recklessly or in an unhelpful way? Are there certain people who demand more of you financially? Are you always the one picking up the bill for this? Are there certain expectations, etc.? So understanding the contributing factors to that.
Yeah.
Another thing that's important is that as soon as we start to have some sort of sustainability when it comes to our finances, guys, let's sort out our debts because they follow us. Sometimes when we start to see some cash flow in our account, we see it as an opportunity to increase our lifestyle rather than to sort out some of the, some of the things that have happened in the past that weren't necessarily our fault, but they are there nonetheless. I always say that you can't move forward without fixing what is in your rearview mirror, So I think that's an important thing. And I think as a generation, that is where we probably do trip ourselves up a little bit, is that we don't fix the back so it follows us. So even as we're moving forward, it's accumulating, whether it's from an interest perspective, whether it's from a credit rating perspective, because money's not just finances. Money's also access to finances, So our credit scores, our ratings, how do they impact us? So how can we fix what we've come from? And again, that's abundance mindset, So when you've got an abundance mindset, you say, I've got enough for this, to fix the past, and I've got enough for the present as well. And how do I grow into that, right? Abundance mindset speaks to the gratitude of what you do have already. Does it change our situations, challenges that we're facing? Absolutely not. But it helps us to see more than the challenges. So it helps us to see that there is more than the challenges that we are experiencing. Having an abundance mindset means being cognizant of the growth that you have had in your life, because having an abundance mindset means no comparison. Stay in your own financial lane. Don't look at what Doric is doing as a measure of success or finances. Don't look at what Kanya is doing as a measure of a financial success. So staying in your own lane means that for your own journey, you have enough and you are enough.
For your own journey.
For your own journey.
You have enough. You know, and I wanted to touch on that briefly, because the abundance mindset, you know, sometimes we want to practice these things. And I love that we're having this conversation with you, and you're unpacking it, I think, a bit more, because sometimes pick up a book and you read and they say, have this mindset, and you engage it without understanding. Because sometimes I stop myself and I'm like, am I going crazy? Am I not acknowledging, you know, the situation for what it is? So in terms of literally, of really believing what you're saying, right, and being able to practice it with meaning and with consistency to the point that you experience change. What is the balance? I don't know if there can be a balance, but what is the balance between saying I am exercising a abundance mindset and I'm not complaining, or if I do acknowledge that this is the situation, that my bank reserves are rather low, you know, because for some people then they go to the extreme where they can't even tell you their bank reserves, because I don't want to say I don't have money because that means I'm not going to get money. So is there a balance? Can we strike a balance with the language? Is there maybe different language that we can use that will, you know?
Because the truth is we're very quick to sound broke.
Yeah.
That's the escape type of phrase. I'm broke. So if I can't say I'm broke, what do I say when it's not there?
Yes, and I'm trying to have an abundant
I'm trying
mindset.
to have an abundance mindset with the swag that comes with it, please.
Yes.
What do I say?
Yeah.
Because I find myself sometimes like I do want to go out to dinner. With Doric, and I'm just like,
maybe not.
You know. So now I don't want to say I'm broke.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to own that for myself, but I do want to communicate to Doric.
Girl,
it's not happening. You know, I'm not in a, and I want to communicate in such a way that maybe she can say, "No, I got you, girl."
Yeah.
You know, or it's gonna be, it's fine. Let's push it back. You know, for maybe that month end.
Yeah.
You know, how do I communicate that?
So I think it's a few things. I think firstly, in terms of the balance of it, you know, I think one of the things where that abundance mindset was a challenge for me, because does it mean not acknowledging my reality, which is important? So it doesn't mean that, you know? So even from a journaling perspective, I'll say I'll acknowledge my reality. I'll write all the things that are currently real for me. And let's speak financially specifically in this context, right? But I also acknowledge the stuff that is available.
Okay.
And is happening. And in that way, you can start to create some balance. So yes, there are these challenges, but here are the things that are possible. You know, I was able to buy some groceries. I was able to make sure that I have a roof over my head. I was able, do I have access? Maybe not necessarily. And again, practice does not make perfect, but it does make progress. The more you train yourself to do that, the better you become at it. Consistency is always, always the key. In terms of small things, lifestyle things, let's say we want to go out for dinner and the finances aren't necessarily there. What is possible? Maybe you can buy something small, cook it at home, invite your friends, ask them to bring some wine. I think there's not one way to look at things. And I think sometimes that's where we are. We see, I can't go out for dinner tonight, but we don't see what is possible. Can I buy a braai pack and cook some pap, you know, and say, Doric, come here, bring some wine. Let's chill at home and have a girls' night, because my
guys. Can we do makwenya? It doesn't have to be sushi.
I just did braai pack and pap. I'm there with you.
Not sushi if you can't afford it. You can't afford
That's
the
what I'm saying.
sushi.
Can it just be amakwenya and not let's go to whatever fancy
Yeah.
sushi place. Because, at the end of the day, I was saying to Refiloe earlier on, I was like, I really would like to just catch up, now that we've had this moment. And it doesn't have to be, anything like we're going for coffee or a lunch or whatever. Can we go to a yoga studio, and have that? So I guess I understand what you're saying. It's what is possible.
Seeing what's possible. Make a
Yeah.
sandwich, go on a picnic. There's so many things that are available to us, There's so many ways that we can interact with people.
Yes.
It's not just what we don't see,
Yeah.
but there are other things available. And I think that's how I would describe it.
No.
Oh, I love how you've literally just summed everything up so nicely because basically you started from getting us to understand the foundation is you. How do you see things from the inside in terms of your own identity? But it's also connected to those around you. How do you impact your children, your friends? And do your friends also have an impact on you? And your relationship with money then comes in there. Because then if I've got friends where we can't tell each other the truth, we're not being authentic. I want to
Are
put
we
this
friends?
facade.
Are we friends?
Girl,
Are we?
girl. because we have relationships like that where we can't be honest. So if I have a friend and I'm telling her, yeah, not today, but let's do something else. I should not operate from a space of fear.
But again, that's also the scarcity mindset.
Yes.
Because why would you have a friend that's not a friend?
Oh,
Do you not feel or believe that you could have a friend that is a friend?
or maybe we're not even paying attention to the fact that I should be paying attention to the friends I have in my circle because
Yeah.
we are sometimes floating in a bubble where I'm just living my life. I just want to highlight that I do have friends, but awareness is exactly that, where you start paying attention to who do I have around me? Right? If I know my values and I know who I am, now I need to start doing some type of audit because I think just based on where you started and breaking it down, it feels like you begin to take the mirror and say, okay, Doric,
This is where we are.
this
And I
is
think
where
the
we are.
important thing about it is, again, like not looking at it from a place of being a victim.
Own it.
Just having a preference. I prefer to be around this
Someone like
person
this.
or that person. It's not an
Yeah.
attack. It's not to say, "Lo muntu nje," or this person is like this and I'm going to
better.
step away. It really is that, because sometimes we create victim situations, which again points to scarcity, So the abundance mindset
It's
is,
different.
a different vocabulary,
Yeah.
as we said.
Yeah, the
you know,
Different language.
which filters into differently into our lives. Sometimes we're fighting. You don't need to fight. You can just remove yourself. It doesn't have to be drama. It doesn't have to be anything serious.
Drama free.
Yes.
No more drama. Mary J.
No more
Blige
drama.
said it best. And just before we close, Refiloe, there's something that you touched on, and I think it's an important thing to share, also as women who look like us. And when I say women who look like us, women who are African, women who are Black, because culture is very important to us. So from a wellness perspective, because we have been, and psychology, a lot of books, and when you hear people speak, we are a communal people. We want to be together. But boundaries, especially boundaries that seem to be healthy, will always seem to put you in a space where you think you're alone, because I don't think it's actually true that you're alone. You just have to seek your tribe. So the setting of boundaries while trying to stay well, because sometimes those boundaries are painful because it's boundaries from people that are really close and important to you, So I just wanted to quickly just touch on that how, again, I guess I'm seeking that balance.
I do think that even in terms of people who look like us, the world has changed. I think that we are the most community deficient as we've ever been, even in terms of the conversations that we're having right now. Previously, we always understood that it took a village. So to acknowledge a challenge or a struggle, it was not as big as it is now. I think now we find ourselves quite isolated. We find ourselves in roles where we want to be perceived as perfect and having it all, so we don't necessarily need anyone. We're trying to prove a lot. And I think it's a very tricky situation, So acknowledging firstly that all of us have work to do in terms of building our communities, because we know for some of us that when we're not feeling in a good space, we shut down. We don't turn towards people, but rather we turn away from people. But then we say that we are community people. Let's really question ourselves. Are we really? Is it still how we operate? When it comes to boundaries, I think boundaries are about having healthy conversations, you know? So it's not that electric fence where someone touches you and you get shocked and, you know, people must die. And
Like, okay.
I have to admit, I was
feels
very
like
much
Terminator.
like that. Terminator.
Terminator vibes.
Listen,
Those
when it
were
came
Terminator
to boundaries,
vibes.
I was Terminator. I have grown.
Yeah. We are happy for your growth.
I am no
Thank
longer
you.
the electric fence that is shocking people into line in my life, but it is about having courageous conversations. You know, it's about opening a space of vulnerability within you to say, hey, I'm not enjoying how this is going. You know, I'm not enjoying how we're relating to one another when it comes to this, that, and whatever not, you know, and then also giving the other person permission to have a right of response. And I think, you know, the thing about boundaries, they are conversational, you know, it's a discussion. It helps us to understand each other a little bit more. It talks to our requirements, but it also talks to having a level of self-worth to let people know what your requirements are.
Right of response.
Wow. That is powerful. And I think it does show that you did a bit of yoga because your voice is so soothing. I could listen to you the whole day. I could listen to Refiloe the whole day. But thank you so much for those wise words. We can't say we had enough in terms of the information, and for people who woke up to the fact that there is so much more that you can still tap into. That's why we're having these conversations, and we're chatting to this lady, beautiful lady, and sitting position tells you that she does yoga. Kanye and I would never try that.
I mean, I could, but
We didn't want to show off. We didn't want to show off, so we just thought.
You know, if we'd been briefed. And I like, because I was like, when we're in wardrobe, right? And I'm just like, you know, which shoes to go for? And she's like, I'm going no shoes. I was like, I'll join you.
Wow.
But she's like, but it's also just me, you know? And I guess that's the power of it, you know, the worth. That knowing that, what did she say at the beginning? She said, you are enough. There's something that she said about enough that I thought, when we played, that was just.
I think for me, what I'm taking is just remembrance that there is enough for all of us out there.
Yeah.
You're not lacking. And you just need to understand what to attract for yourself, knowing what those things are, being very specific and understanding why you want them. Because in the end, that is exactly what defines your success. And if it's money you're looking for, I think you've got some great tips from Refiloe, and she's the CEO of Mindful Revolution. So how do people follow you if they want to catch up with you, consult with you? How do they do that?
Well, we're on LinkedIn as Mindful Revolution. You can also find me personally. My name is Refiloe Nyoni. You can find us on social media. Facebook, Instagram,
everywhere.
We're not where the cool kids are, so we're not TikToking yet.
Yeah. I think you do well in the
Showing my
TikTok space.
age.
I think you'll do well in that space. I do.
I don't know.
Try it out.
But you see my scarcity mentality coming
You know?
up there?
Oh, yes. You know?
Catching myself on my own stuff, you know?
Progress. You did say practice this, progress.
Yeah. But thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting to you. And we do know that we'll probably be chasing after you again. Having you back here talking about other things. Immediately when you were talking, I thought relationships. This lady will be good.
Very
for
important.
some tips. So ladies, if you think this lady could be back again to discuss relations outside of money, because there is a link between relationships and money as well. So we could tap into that. But to you, Refiloe, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for you, if you're watching, this is Unlock Women, the Money series with Kanya Sosibo.
And Doric Sitole.
And we're saying goodbye to our guest here. And we're saying goodbye to Refiloe Nyoni, who's the CEO of Mindful Revolution. Take care.